Hi, this is Miss Sharon. I'm going to show you about our ebook for Spanish class and also how Skyward's going to work this semester for this class. So if you're going to Skyward right now, it would look a lot like this. Of course, I have 30-something students, so you'll only have the one. But you can see there are a lot of assignments on here. First off, let's check out our categories before I get too in depth. So categories, 20% of the grade is going to come from classwork and quizzes. That's pretty much all stuff that we do in class. There will be some homework involved there though, but nothing too terribly difficult. There is a midterm and a final, and those will be 10% of their grade. There is no EOC for Spanish class, so that's good news. We have something called an interactive notebook, which will be 10% of their grade. That is basically note-taking. If you see something under that category and it's not 100% or really, really close to it, you probably want to speak to your child about that, because that really should be, that's an effort grade, so that should be very, very good. There is a 10% speaking grade, and we'll get into that in a bit. And then the chapter tests are 50% of their grade. So that is how that breaks down as far as the percentages go. Let's see. Okay, so then, let's see, it's kind of freezing up on me. If you look over here, you can see there's something called Flipgrid. That's a website, flipgrid.com. Feel free to check it out. But you just go on there and you can make little videos, and I may ask a question of the day. It would be something in Spanish. It might be, what is your name? And then the kids will get on there and make just a very short, 3-second video saying my name is whatever. It is very secure. There will be a password that only our students can see, so it's not something where just anybody can watch these videos. But that is a speaking grade, and they would get just different amounts of points for that. But back to how many assignments there are on here. There are a lot. And for some people, they'll see that and they'll say, oh my word. And this is just one chapter. This is stuff, the date is pretty flexible, so don't rely on that. But this is stuff that we should get to within the first week or two of school. And it looks like a lot, because I've found that if I don't put every single little thing that we do on there, when students are absent or missing work for whatever reason, then they sometimes get confused on what they need to make up. So it is every single little thing that we do. And you can see we have a 5-point assignment, a 6-point assignment, a 10-point assignment. That's basically how many questions they're answering. And you'll see that here in a bit. So it's not near as much as it looks like. But back to this, 20 points for the notebook check. And like I said, that really should be 100. Both of these things should be 100. The speaking things are really mostly about effort. And if they're having trouble with it, they can come see me after class or between classes or something, and we can look at it. There are anywhere between 10 and 15 activities typically for each chapter. So you can see chapter 1, activity 1, chapter 1, activity 2. So that's how I lay those out. This particular chapter has 13 activities. And then we'll come over here, and that MA that you see on the screen stands for Materiales Auténticos. And that means authentic materials in Spanish. It's just flip-flopped between the two languages. That's what the MA is. But you'll see when I show you the ebook, that's pretty easy to figure out. But these are authentic materials, the actual commercials and things like that are in Spanish. And then they'll have questions underneath that are in either Spanish or English. And my rule for Spanish class is if it's in Spanish, you answer in Spanish. If the question's in English, then you answer in English. But that's on there, and you can see not a whole lot of questions that go with those. Every chapter does have a speaking assignment where they will hear a question, and then they've got to record their voice answering that question. And it's always vocabulary from the chapter, so nothing major there. That is one of the more difficult things that we do in class. But again, if they're struggling with it, they can absolutely come see me between classes or before school. There's a panorama for every chapter, which I'll show you. These next several are interviews, and a lot of those are actually in English. So they'll just answer 3 questions in English, and so those should be really, really good. Let's see what else we have. There are videos typically for the grammar. So they'll have a video talking about greetings, and there will be 10 questions to go with it. You can see there. So fairly simple. There's some cultural videos about Mexico City, Dia de los Muertos, quinceañeras. So you can get on there, same thing, answer the questions, and those are typically going to be in English also. You can see there are a couple of, these are listening activities, and I will show you more about those. There's some things called masteries, quizzes. At the end of the chapter, I like for them to go through a can-do checklist so they can kind of self-evaluate, and then they will have their chapter test, and there are multiple choice questions, typically about 30, and then there's a writing section where they get 10 points for that. So as far as their test grade goes, 25% of that test is from the writing section. So if you ever see a 0 there, it will typically be along with a note saying did not attempt or something like that. That would absolutely be something to speak to your child about. If you ever see a 0 in here and that something is missing, please ask your child about that. I'm going to do my best to hold them accountable, but I can take all the help I can get. But anyways, back to the ebook. This is something that's brand new for a lot of us parents, but we don't have a physical textbook anymore. That's why we have the interactive notebook. It's kind of like they're making their own textbook. But this ebook is really pretty cool because they can get on here, they can do activities. In this one, we're going to be learning about the alphabet. So they go in here and they're saying, okay, Jota, what letter is that? It's a J. X, that is an X. So they just type their answers in there, hit submit, and then it will go ahead and grade those. And sometimes I'll have a limit to how many times they can attempt this. Sometimes I'll say you can do it up to 5 times, something like that. So I really encourage the kids to redo these assignments if they miss one. I really want all of these activities from here. When you go back here where it says activities, they ought to be able to get hundreds on those or really, really close to it, because this is the practice for the tests. So these are, they count, I believe I said 20% of the total grade, but this is where they are getting the practice for that test. So if you were paying attention to the Skyward, it had activities through 13, so that's what these are. And the kids will actually be able to hit this right here. It's this little piece of paper with the star on it, and it will show them what the assignments are, whether they have completed them or not. If they have completed them, it will show them what grade they got. So it's really well laid out. There also are presentations on here for anything that we learn in class. They can check that stuff out. Just notes. It's got, like for the vocabulary, it's got the alphabet on here, and they can click on here and hear what the word, or what the letter in this case, sounds like. So that's pretty cool. The authentic materials, you can go on here, click on it. This one is a video for Smucker's Jelly, and it's in Spanish, and they'll just listen to it, and you can see it's got, what's this an advertisement for? It's in English. What do you think they're discussing? And really those are pretty obvious based on what you're watching. And then it says, based on watching the video, what do you think these mean? A lot of the kids will look at this word and already know. They'll know what familia means. Marmelada, they may know. And then Inglés and Español, hopefully they'll kind of pick up through watching this. And then this is just with the classmate stuff. Sometimes we do these, sometimes we don't. And it just gives some additional things that we can do. But you can see it's a 30-second video, and then it's got 7 questions to go with it. So when you're thinking about Skyward and all these activities that we have to do, keep in mind that some of these are 30-second videos with a few short questions to answer. This would be the speaking assignment here. And for this, they're going to hit this button right here.
Hola, me llamo Joana. ¿Cómo estás?
So they would listen to that, and then they'll hit record right here, and that will record their voice. They can re-record it if they feel like their first attempt wasn't good, or if I grade it and mark it wrong and they would like to reattempt that, they absolutely can do that. After they're finished recording their voice, they'll hit stop. They can play it back, and it will pop up this eyeball. This is not a self-grading assignment. This is something I have to listen to. Which reminds me of something else. When you look on the activities, these little, it's like lightning bolts. That means that it's self-grading. If it's got the little person there, that person is me, so I have to grade those. So there are those. This is the panorama. I really, really like these. But the panorama, they go in and you can turn around. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. So this is just kind of observing. And then it's got questions in English, at least for this chapter. They do eventually turn into Spanish as we learn some words. But then it's just questions like this. What type of buildings do you see in the panorama? Can you understand any of the signs? So, I mean, they cannot get this wrong unless they are really trying. If they type in like meatballs and spaghetti or something, yeah, that would be wrong. But I mean, if they put, I see brick buildings, you know, I'm going to give them that. And can you understand any of the signs? Maybe they don't know what any of these signs mean. If they put no, I can't understand any of it, then I'm going to give them credit for that. So these are really, really easy. Interviews. If you'll get with your child and have them log in and show you this happens to be an English video. It's got the questions under it. And this is typically cultural information. It also kind of works on giving them a bit of an ear for listening to people who have this Spanish accent. So it helps with the listening, and it also does give them some cultural information. But you can see there are just 3 questions there. They are in English. They'll answer in English. The videos, these tend to be a bit longer. We typically will watch them in class, or at least cover the information in class, and then the videos are there if they need some review. But see, this is almost a 17-minute video. But it's just got these questions that go with it. It's multiple choice. Typically on the multiple choice questions, I will give them just 1 or 2 chances. I have found that if I just give them unlimited attempts, then they'll just, pick until they get them all right and they won't actually think about it. So those are definitely limited in how many chances they get. There are games in here. I don't typically put that in Skyward as a grade, but I do highly recommend that they do those. This is a concentration game, and so they just click on the words until they find it. I'm really bad at this game, but there's that. So those are the concentration games. That's a classroom game. There's some flashcards already made on here, so that's pretty cool. And then masteries and quizzes, those are pretty similar things. But this is a listening mastery, and if it will load, I'll show you. So they would just listen to this.
Buenos días. Más o menos.
And they would decide if that conversation makes sense or not. So they would type yes or no. At the end, they can hit submit. Hopefully. Well, typically they'll hit submit and it will do just like that other assignment did, where there it goes. It will go ahead and grade it for us. And typically the masteries and the quizzes are something, for sure when it's just 2 options, I just give 1 chance for that. There are other masteries that are short answer, where they've got to write out the word for 23 in Spanish, so they're working on spelling and everything. Quizzes, some kids get kind of stressed out when I say quiz, but those actually count the exact same as daily assignments, but they are going to be limited in how many attempts they get with this. For some reason, my computer is moving really, really slowly today, but it's the same basic thing. It's sometimes it's short answers, sometimes it's multiple choice, but same sort of thing. There it is. So it's got questions. How do you spell the number 6, but in Spanish? What number is quince? So just kind of a mishmash of different types of questions. There is a work summary. I really like this. If that will pop up. And on this page, it will show what they have actually completed in the chapter. So you can see I did this activity on the screen here and I only got 2 out of 9 right. I believe that if I write some notes in, like work on spelling or something, I believe that will show up here. That's something I actually need to go back and show you. When things get graded, well, it's not going to go. But as things get graded, you will have either, like let's say this said number 2. You'll have some kind of little exclamation point here if I've written a note. That way I can give feedback on, you know, is it something picky? Is it just some kind of little spelling thing? Or maybe I'll write, oh, there we go. So it would show up like right here. There would be a little exclamation point and it would say, you know, work on your spelling, or this is what you wrote, this is what this means. Does that really make sense? You know, so I'll write little notes there. And let's see what else we got here. There is a vocabulary list. I typically will give them a hard copy of a vocab list. It looks a little bit different than this one. This one tends to be ordered a little bit differently. It's kind of strange the way that those are done. But that's not, there we go. But you can see it's just got a vocab list. It does have the place where you can listen to how things are said. And then the can-do checklist. This is typically just out of 2 points. It doesn't take a lot of academic thought. But it is very useful. There are 3 options. I need help. I'm almost there. Yes, I can. So I can tell someone my name in Spanish. You know, yes, I definitely know what that means. I can with a little reminder, or no, I just need help with this. And if they find themselves in this column here needing a lot of help, they probably need to come to some tutoring. Things they're most proud of, what they need to improve on, what they want to learn more about is on there. And then they just submit their answers. If you are seeing zeros on this can-do checklist, that is a problem. I mean, you can see this doesn't take hardly any thought. So absolutely ask them about that if they're not getting that. And then the chapter test. Sometimes I do this in a different format, but basically it's something like this. They'll have some multiple choice questions, just about things we learned in class. There's typically a reading section where they read something and they answer questions about it. And then there'll be a listening section where they listen. In this case, they're picking out the numbers that they hear. And then down at the bottom, they will have, this is the writing section. This is the 10 points that I talked about earlier from Skyward. But this one, I always tell them the day before exactly what they're going to need to do. Sometimes we'll practice it. So it says, introduce yourself to a pen pal, include your name, age, and at least 3 questions. It does need to be completely in Spanish. I do take off 1 point for every English word because I'm pretending I don't speak any English. So if you're speaking English, you might as well not be speaking at all. So it is completely in Spanish, and they would just need to make sure they include the information. My name is blah, blah, blah. I'm this many years old. And you, what is your name? How old are you? Something like that would get them 100 on that, as long as they know what the words are. So that's how it's set up. So if you are looking on Skyward, and please do check Skyward for your kid. If you're looking on Skyward and you're seeing a whole lot of zeros, now these stars don't matter. If it's a star, that just means that I have not graded it, or maybe it didn't count for whatever reason. Maybe I never even assigned it. For some reason, I decided that activity wasn't necessary. But if you see a star, don't worry. If you see a 0, that is when you need to worry.